Hi, I'm Supervisor Nick D'Alessandro, and I'm here with our Town Assessor, Kathy Martin, and our Town Controller, Mark Posniak, and we're here to give a little information session. Our Town Assessor's Office is very busy this time of year, assessing new properties, old properties, and we want to give a little information to the public so you understand what that entails. Kathy, how are you?
I'm good, very busy.
So can you give a little overview of your office and explain to the people what you do and what the duties of your office are, please?
Sure. What we do in the assessor's office is we identify and value all the real property in the town. So that means we value all the houses, the businesses, the utility properties, and all of the special franchise properties that go above and below the public right-of-way. We also administer exemptions. So we have a veterans exemption, a low-income senior. The STAR exemption has changed a little bit because New York State is now administering that exemption for us. And we also have an agricultural exemption and disability.
So Kathy, also you not only have to assess all the real property in town, and you have to deal with all the exemptions, the STAR exemption, very important. A lot of people always worry about the STAR exemptions. Also, you have to oversee the public grievances and the Board of Assessment review, correct?
Right.
So can you explain that process?
Sure. So the way it works is every day of the year, the town assessor is in control of the assessment roll. But one day a year, the grievance board comes in, and they're comprised of a group of volunteers from the town, and they are given special training by New York State through the county about, assessing and the law, real property tax law. And that one day of the year, they are the ones that are in control of the grievance roll. And that's really checks and balances in government. It keeps a check on, one person having all the control. So there's always an avenue for people that if they come to see the assessor and they don't like their assessment, they can always then go on to the grievance board.
Understood. So now May 1st is your deadline for you to complete the assessment roll?
Yes, we filed the tentative roll. So being tentative, it means it's kind of a work in progress, that it could still be changed. So we send out all the change of assessment notices on or around May 1st for the properties. People can also look up their new assessments at Dutchess County Parcel Access. They'll be made public on May 1st. You can also call my office. The phone number is 845-226-6353 if you want to know what your assessment is and you're anxious and you don't want to wait for the mail. Because sometimes people, their mail's delayed for whatever reason, but we're happy to give you your new assessment over the phone. So when you get that assessment, one thing you have to remember is that we didn't do anything last year with the assessments. Because of COVID, the governor did an executive order saying we could just freeze all the senior citizen exemptions and all the assessments for 1 year. We did have grievance day, but we didn't change the assessments. So now this year, in evaluating the properties, we're really encapsulating 2 years instead of just one, and the market has been extremely active. So the trend in the assessments in the real estate marketplace in our town has definitely gone up because there's a lack of supply. There's not a lot of houses on the market, and the ones that are selling for higher sales prices. A lot of that we think is due to COVID, due to people wanting to move into more suburban areas, and our area, and also the interest rates, the mortgage interest rates being at generational lows. So we've seen an increase in the market.
So that coupled with, let me go back. The job of the assessor, you have to be very familiar with the real estate market.
Yes.
So basically, in layman's terms, for a regular person to understand how their value goes up, it's based upon demand of the market.
Yes.
So East Fishkill is a very hot market.
Yes.
We know that, and I know that from all the mortgage tax revenues that we see in town. East Fishkill is the #1 town in all of Dutchess County. And from what I have heard from a lot of real estate experts, as you mentioned, there is not a lot of homes for sale
Right.
to meet the demand for the people wanting to move here.
Yes.
It's wonderful we want to have new people move here, but that also could probably inflate the prices of these homes higher
Yes.
than what they are. So your job is to look at the values based upon the real estate market.
Yes. We use sales comparison approach to value the properties. There's 3 approaches to value for real estate, one being the cost approach. That's usually most accurate the first year of a house being constructed or a building being constructed, because after that you get into depreciation, and that can become very subjective. So the courts shy away from the cost approach. The income comparison approach is generally used for commercial properties. It's really not applicable with a single-family home. So with single-family, 2-family, 3-family homes, vacant land, we look for sales comparisons. So if you have a raised ranch built in 1980, we're gonna look for other raised ranches in the town that were built around the same time. They're approximately the same size. We look at land size, how big your acreage is, and do our comparisons like that.
So sometimes I get a resident who will call me and they'll say they just purchased a house for, argument's sake, $400,000, and that their assessment is $400,000. So usually the sale price becomes the new assessed value, correct?
Generally.
And sometimes they complain about that they believe it's too high, but how can you complain if that's the price you're paying for the home?
Right.
So it's a little bit a difficult situation when you want to grieve that sort of issue.
Right. Well, what we've been doing for the last, since 2007, we've been doing annual reassessing. So we look at the entire town every year, and we look at the trends for real estate and sales activity, how much we're going up or down. And we even break it down by style of home, school district, size of home. We get really in depth with the calculations, but that's pretty much what we use. We weigh most heavily on the sales comparison approach.
Understood. Now, one of the arguments in town always is the assessment is going to go up, and so are their taxes just because the home is worth more. Well, we know that's not necessarily true. And Mark, our comptroller, how are you?
I'm doing well.
Can you explain that situation so they can understand why that isn't the true nature of assessment increasing and their taxes increasing as well?
Sure. So the town tax levy, which is the total amount we collect from all properties in the town, is derived completely independently of any assessment. The only impact that the assessment has on the town tax levy is new growth. So new homes or additions increase the tax cap, and in that sense has an influence on the amount we collect. But otherwise, the assessed value of homes doesn't impact the total amount that we collect in property taxes. What the assessed value does is helps us to distribute that tax levy across all the properties. So as assessments increase, if they're increasing uniformly, it should have zero effect on your town property tax bill.
Okay, so assessments are not taxes. So let's say you have an increase of, what would be an average increase possibly this year, Kathy, for?
Well, we work closely with New York State Office of Tax and Finance, and they measure my assessment roll, and they develop their trends. And then basically because they certify our roll every year, New York State does, I have to be within their standard deviation. I have to be within their model. And, I advocate for the town, and we go back and forth, and then we come to some kind of resolution. They measure my role, and if it's within their standard, then we're fine. But the state and I have reconciled to an 8% overall increase for residential properties. But that being said, there were some neighborhoods that maybe increased a little bit more or a little bit less, depending on the sales activity in their neighborhood. Because the market has been so active these last couple of years, almost every street you go on in the town, there's been multiple sales. So when you use the example earlier of the one house that sold for $400,000 and their assessment goes up, chances are the whole neighborhood's gonna go up because there's multiple sales that are gonna, it's not like one house is gonna go up and everyone else is gonna stay the same. Everybody's gonna come up to that level that New York State deems appropriate for this year.
So you work with New York State to do your initial assessment roll and your tentative roll,
Yes.
rather, that's the proper name, correct? And you agree, and they have to approve it, is that
Yes.
correct? Okay, so 8% will be on average.
Yes.
And so for Mark, on average, say you have a $500,000 home and you're gonna have a 8% increase, so now instead of your home being worth $500,000, your property is going to be worth $540,000.
Right, and it may not affect your tax bill.
So if your tax rate is 3.0, okay? And let's explain that. Let's explain the tax rate. How does the tax rate affect your assessed value? How does that equal tax dollars for the people to pay?
Right, so ultimately, yes, your assessed value times the tax rate is what you're gonna pay in property taxes. But as that assessed value goes up, assuming we haven't increased the total property taxes, the rate will actually decrease so that the higher assessed value times a lower tax rate will result in basically the same tax collected.
Tax dollars, correct. Okay, so that's good to know. So if the town or the county or the school district leave the tax rate the same, they do not raise taxes, we do not increase any of our tax levy, then the tax rate will automatically reduce because its assessment roll is higher.
That's right.
Okay, so that dispels the myth that if your assessments increase, so does your taxes.
Right.
Right. Where it could play a role is when your assessed value goes up, but your neighbor's doesn't, or when the town's tax assessment goes up, but somewhere else in the county, it doesn't, or goes up by a lesser amount. Then again, we're taking a slightly bigger piece of the tax pie than that area that didn't. For county and for school taxes, any taxes that are applied across municipalities.
Understood. So that's why it's very important for us to keep a roll at 100% valuation.
Yes.
And also very important for our neighboring towns that we are in the same school district, say Wappingers. We have town of Fishkill, town of East Fishkill, town of Poughkeepsie, the town of Wappinger, that we all have the same assessed valuation, because that would make it more fair for every single-family home in all those towns to pay the correct rate for the school taxes.
Right, because that 100% equalization rate, that the level of 100% speaks to the equalization rate, which is a number that New York State assigns to every municipality. And you're right, that if we all stay at 100%, which in Southern Dutchess County, we are all annually reassessing communities, so we're all staying at 100%, because that alleviates any severe tax shifts between towns within the same school district. That we had that years ago before we started annually reassessing. So staying at 100% helps to avoid that.
Okay, understood. And so everybody understands at home, whether it's the school board or the county or East Fishkill, we're all independently have our own tax rate for our tax levy. So that can affect the amount of taxes you pay. So I'm very happy we had this conversation because a lot of people have some myths about the assessments and taxes and to give information on what to do. Now, Kathy, say I don't agree with the assessment. I believe it's too high. What are my next steps?
Okay, well, we are sending out change of assessment notices for all increases in the town. And there is going to be out, so everyone will know what their new assessment is. And again, don't forget, we didn't change assessments last year overall. So this is for a 2-year time period. So you have to take a look at it, see if you think it's reasonable. If you don't believe it is, then you can call my office again at 845-226-6353, and you can schedule a phone appointment. Because of COVID, we're doing phone appointments again this year. And then we can have a phone meeting and discuss your assessment and why you think it's not accurate. And you can do that as step one, or you could go straight to the grievance board. So either way, the grievance form, I believe, is RP 524. You can find that on www.nytax.gov. You can download that form. That's the grievance form. I would highly suggest, if you were preparing a package for the grievance board, to put in some supporting documentation. You have to state on the front of the grievance form what you think the home should be valued at, and then give some documentation as to why you feel that way. So you can drop that off at the town hall. We have a drop box in the front lobby. You could mail it, you can email it, you can fax it. With
A lot of options.
Yeah, the governor has relaxed a lot of the rules for filing because of COVID, and we're very grateful for that because of the pandemic. So I would say first call my office, make a phone appointment. If you don't have time to do that and you want to go straight to grievance day, just fill out the form, put in some supporting documentation. You can drop it off to be heard by the grievance board on grievance. You don't have to be present. Or if you feel that you want to talk to the grievance board, we will be having hours. It's the 4th Tuesday in May. It's May 25th this year. The grievance board will be meeting from 2 to 4 and 6 to 8. And we will be having live meetings, but they will be socially distant. So just to keep everybody safe, we have a lot of chairs and we can space them far apart.
Excellent. And we're all vaccinated
Yes.
100%. That's why we're not wearing our masks, which I'm grateful for. But that's very good information. And if, like you said, please call your office if you have questions.
Yes.
Thank you very much. And thank you to you and your staff for working hard for the residents to have a fair and honest appraisal and assessment of their homes.
Thank you.
Thank you. I know it's a lot of work. It's been very, very busy, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I know that your office is always busy too, Mark. Thank you. And I know that our budget season will be coming up next several months. We'll start preparing the budget, you and I. And we have never broken the New York State mandated tax cap. And I believe even with COVID and all the issues that it brought, loss of revenue, we will continue to keep East Fishkill's taxes the lowest in Dutchess County. We do have the lowest tax rate in Dutchess County with a full-time police force. And I'm very proud of that. I tout that a lot because it's something to be proud of when our surrounding communities, some don't have full-time police forces, and we do, and our taxes are very low. So thank you for all your work.
Yep, and you and the board have done a great job
Yeah,
keeping taxes low and services high.
Yeah, we work well together, and we're blessed with good communication. So thank you both very much for joining me today. And if you have any questions, please call the town hall. You can always call my office at 221-4303, and I'll get you all the information you need. Thank you very much.
Thank you.